Knowing that you'll respect them in the morning with intelligent talk that stimulates.
Welcome back to our Picking Up the Pieces segment right here on Inside the News. Glad to have you with us. And you know what? We talk about different things on this program, and we do some pre-production notes back and forth. And really, this show starts 5, 6, 7 days before we actually go to air with this program. And one of the discussion points that we had was Trump goes to church might be one of the single most important points. Maybe not. Ben, go.
Well, I'll cut to the chase. I think that action by Donald Trump to reclaim the streets of Washington, D.C. was the pivot point. And we saw that before that, things were getting worse. And after that, it really broke the back of the violent demonstrations. And it was a statement to police forces around and mayors and local officials around the country that it was time to reclaim the streets. And I think that is part of why the backlash against Donald Trump by the left has been so vicious around this issue. The concept of the President of the United States being able to leave the White House and walk a couple blocks and visit a church that the night before was almost burned to the ground. A lot of people, I watched it live on Fox as they were showing the church being the victim of arson. Luckily, it didn't spread through the church, but it was a statement by Donald Trump. It has been played up. There's been a lot of false narrative as to how peaceful the protesters were. This came after days of violent protests, organized violent protests around the Capitol, around the White House. And it was a statement by Trump to recapture the streets. I welcome it. I thought it was a little awkward the way he waved the Bible around, but that's a different issue. The real statement that he made was, hey, we're going to take back the streets of America, and we're going to start right here outside the White House. Or stated another way, if we can't reclaim the streets and the blocks surrounding the White House, where can we reclaim the streets? And he made that statement, and the results speak for themselves. As I said, from that moment, the violence eased considerably, and things have gotten better, and we're back to peaceful protests, which is perfectly fine. I support them. Peacefully protest all you want, but violence is not acceptable ever.
A picture's worth 1,000 words, and Donald Trump has been criticized a lot about his words on Twitter, but Frank, illuminate on that, because that was a pretty powerful picture we saw.
Well, it was, but let's understand that the reaction to Trump's walk to the church was consistent with everything the Democrats have attempted to do since 2016. Let's look at the tail of the tape, as they say. First, after his election, we saw demonstrations in the street, and we heard people saying, he's not my president, he'll never be my president. Then we saw, for almost 2.5 years, an attempt to delegitimize the Trump presidency through the phony charges of Russian collusion. Now, of course, with the Trump walk to the church, they're saying, after they criticized him for being pushed into the bunker by his own Secret Service, when he came out of the bunker and walked the streets of Washington, they're saying he, the president of the United States, the duly and fairly elected president of the United States, didn't have the right to walk the streets because protesters didn't want him to. It's a furtherance of the attempt to delegitimize his presidency.
Wow, I want you to talk about that, Ben, because that's quite interesting that they did a turnabout on that. But yet, in what Frank was just saying, it was like the protesters were running the country at that point. He doesn't have a right to walk the streets, but yet he was the president.
Well, I find the whole narrative that was invoked against the president of pushing people off the streets to make way for the president to be really ridiculous. Whenever the president of the United States, whether it's Donald Trump or Barack Obama or any other prior president over the last 50 years, has gone anywhere in this country, the streets are cleared out, and it's your ability to peacefully walk around is inhibited. When Bill Clinton would come up or Barack Obama would come up to New York City, the whole city would be shut down basically so that they could drive up and down Fifth Avenue and go where they wanted to go around the city. So nothing different happened in the case of Washington, D.C. It just happened over a very limited area. It was only a couple of blocks, and the police reasserted their authority over the area. And frankly, it was the right decision for Donald Trump to make, to show that authority. And as I said before, it was a sign to the entire country that the legal forces are taking back the streets from the illegal rioters.
All right. And on that note, we're going to take a pause, and we're going to come back, and we're going to be talking about Drew Brees. He made a comment about the flag. And just that simple comment drew a lot of ire from his fellow teammates and stuff, just on being patriotic. Oh my goodness, it's going to be interesting. Plus our hot button topics. We'll be back.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.